Wildlife and Fisheries will come to order. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome members, witnesses, and our guests in the audience to today's hearing. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the subcommittee at any time. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at hearings are limited to the chairman and the ranking member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' opening statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with Committee Rule 3.0. Without objection, so ordered. We are here today to consider H.R. 7408, America's Wildlife Habitat Conservation Act, sponsored by Chairman Westerman of Arkansas. I now recognize myself for a 5-minute opening statement. Today, the Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries Subcommittee will consider H.R. 7408, the America's Wildlife Habitat Conservation Act offered by Congressman Bruce Westerman of Arkansas. This legislation is a combination of policies that would, if enacted, increase the chances of recovering at-risk species, sharpen the operation of the Endangered Species Act, and improve the investment of tax dollars dedicated to these important areas. Specifically, this legislation would invest in state wildlife programs, such as congressionally mandated state wildlife action plans, which serve as outlines for the recovery of species of greatest concern. These programs exist in 50 states and in U.S. territories. The bill imposes congressional oversight on the expenditure of taxpayer money, assuring that the allocation of these funds is actually resulting in habitat restoration and species recovery. This legislation will also improve management of our national wildlife refuge system by granting good neighbor authority to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This is important to me because the Klamath Basin, located in Oregon and Northern California, is the home of six national wildlife refuges. I represent that portion of the basin in Oregon, and Congressman LaMalfa represents the portion of the basin in California. We have firsthand knowledge of the neglect and intentional damage being inflicted upon these refuges by the inappropriate taking of the refuge's water to support in-stream interests rather than the creatures that need the habitat formerly available in the refuges. This Good Neighbor Authority will provide the service with the means of working with other states, tribes, and counties to conduct and implement improved management of refuges across the United States. I would be remiss if, while discussing refuges, I failed to mention the truly damaging rule concerning refuges recently proposed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. This rule would damage refuges by limiting practices that are beneficial to the birds using the refuges. These practices include use of certain types of crops, the management of bird-hungry predators, and other standard agricultural practices. These regulations will harm our refuges by limiting the use of Good Neighbor Authority. This is an issue that this committee will be looking into. The bill would also provide a legislative fix to Cottonwood Environmental Law Center versus U.S. Forest Service, a Ninth Circuit decision that has triggered a reinitiation of consultation frenzy in our national forest system. This result is not improved management, but instead has caused and continues to cause inefficient and duplicative planning efforts, diverting the Forest Service from focusing upon the existential dangers of wildfire and the many other important issues our forests face. The court's misguided decision to force unnecessary and duplicative review of all other plans upon a triggering event will be corrected in this bill. H.R. 7408 also makes common sense and strategic reforms to the Endangered Species Act that are designed to empower private landowners and states to conserve and restore habitat for listed species. It is clear from its own data that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has failed in its responsibility to recover species. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, 300 domestic species were projected to recover by 2023, but only 57 species have recovered. This bill addresses this dismal record, providing incentives to thousands of private landowners, states, counties, and others, tribes, that will promote species recovery and improve the ways we have available to actually recover species. One of the many innovative ideas in this bill is its requirement that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries develop objective, incremental recovery goals for listed species, and then to provide regulatory relief as those goals are met. Having these agencies determine and explain in detail the numbers of a species needed to achieve sustainability is valuable for any number of reasons, but here are several. A clear statement of the goal to be achieved will allow the agencies to immediately reduce regulation when that goal is achieved. Secondly, a clear statement of the number of species necessary to achieve sustainability will provide assurance to the agency so it can discontinue efforts in that area and shift to other species in need without, hopefully, the flood of lawsuits that inevitably follow agency actions. Finally, establishing a goal will avoid what is happening now with the grizzly bear. 2,000 was the general idea, 2,000 bears. Now there are close to 8,000, and still confusion as to which number is correct. This situation is best described by Lewis Carroll, who said, "When you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." We are way past being able to afford the cost of wandering about, not knowing where we are going, and this bill provides a requirement that we actually know what we're trying to achieve when it comes to species recovery. I'm looking forward to hearing from Chair Westerman, the sponsor of this legislation, and hearing from the witnesses, all of you joining us today. I now recognize Ranking Member Huffman for his opening statement.